run out and see.
Oh, there we are. I take it we're live now?
Yep.
Okay. Today is February 9th, 2023. This is the meeting of the Hamilton Community Preservation Committee. And to start things off, let me take a roll call to make sure we have a quorum. I'm here. Robert Preston.
Here.
Kim Deedle.
Here.
Sandy Cotting.
Here.
Sean Farrell.
Present.
Michelle Hogan.
Here.
Okay, we have 6, that is a quorum, because you only need 5, and we're missing Rick Johansson, Richard Boroff, and Kristen Bridier. So, the first item on the agenda is the status of CPC reserves. I've been emailing back and forth with Laurie for the last couple of weeks on this, and she's been, that is Rick Johansson, and she's been working with the finance department, Alex McGee and the Cheryl.
She's been filling in since Diane left.
Okay, and they have poured through and looked at our reserves in detail. And the questions I asked was, do we have enough money in the right accounts to approve 800 grand for the school committee, should we decide to do so? And the answer was yes. And since I also got some advance warning from Mr. Farrell and Joe Demelowitz, the town will be asking us for $500K to complete the plan for enough money to start construction on Town Hall. I asked if we approved 800 tonight for the school project, will we have 500,000 to approve for Town Hall? And the answer was yes. So we're in good shape. We don't need to worry about too much. And looking ahead, there's no other big grants on the horizon that I can see, so. I just wanted everybody to know that as they wonder, should we or shouldn't we? We can afford both. I thought, since Eric is running between his school committee meeting and the Wenham CPC meeting and ours, that we would flex our agenda. And when he shows up on Zoom or whatever, we'll let him speak, but we'll skip over the discussion of his application until he comes on. So why don't we move to approving the minutes of last meeting, January 12th.
So moved.
Seconded.
Second, does anyone have any corrections or comments on the minutes from last meeting?
Do I vote on it if I was not here?
You can.
If you've read them,
I did read them.
If you read them, yes. So why don't we do a vote? I will say yes. Robert?
Affirmative.
Rick?
Yes.
Kim?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Sean?
yes.
And Michelle?
Yes.
Okay, the minutes are approved. Why don't you move to review of open grants? The Town Hall Restoration Addition and Preservation Project, as I just mentioned a few minutes ago, my understanding, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, the plan is to work with the architect to have him reduce the scope of the project, to take out a couple of major items to bring the cost down. The town, Joe Demelowitz, Sean, will try to get some money out of free cash, 2 or 3 million, I guess it's in that range. And they will ask us for a $500K grant. This is next fall. And then they will exercise the $4 million in grants that we've approved as part of a bonding thing. So that's the plan. I don't know where it is. I don't think there's any meetings going on other than with probably the architect and DPW. So do you know anything more about what's going on with that?
We may be looking at having a special town meeting in June, depending how things go with our planning board and Gordon Seminary. So today, Joe and I briefly discussed maybe having other things on the warrant, one of them being Town Hall, but that was very fresh off the press kind of stuff that we're talking about, but we're not sure. So
Okay.
food for thought on that one.
Okay. The First Congregational Church of Hamilton.
There's no other update. They still haven't completed the work.
Are they going to complete that this year, you think? Or?
Scaffolding is still up.
It's still up, yeah.
Okay.
I stayed there a while.
Okay, all right. And the Patton Park Master Plan, they've had their public information meetings, and now I guess the consultant is preparing the final report and recommendations.
Yep, should be soon.
And so we will see. The question I have, and I've asked several people, is that we will be asked for any money to make some of the improvements that the plan suggests, and that's a big maybe, I guess.
It's a big maybe at the moment, yeah.
I talked to Tim Fazio, the head of Hamilton Wenham Little League, and he's been poking at him, and he made some comment about the Little League maybe paying a good chunk because they want to move their field around.
Yep.
This is the Little League field where right field is in the dirt road.
Toughen them up.
Hasn't quite, they misaligned it when they put it together. Okay, so we'll see. Let's go to committee member reports, and we can start with Sean.
Oh, nothing's happening in town.
That's what I heard.
Let's see. At our meeting on Monday, we had a citizen come to us a little while ago, and we've done some initial research about green burials in Hamilton. And so we're looking more into that. We're probably looking with the Board of Health and our Environmental Impact Committee, looking at if it's feasible in our cemetery and what the parameters are, and if it's not, is there other spaces in town where we could have green burials? That's probably developing over the next handful of months. We closed the warrant. We are talking water rates. Most likely will be some form of increase, but we're going to talk more in depth at our next meeting. Town Hall, as Jay mentioned, we're looking at banner policies because our sign and banner policies are kind of all over the place, so we're trying to align those. I am still currently involved with the Gordon Seminary and the Planning Board, trying to get zoning change for that campus, and also a development agreement between the college and us for future stuff on that site. The '24 budget has been finalized. The Master Plan Steering Committee has been working hard and had a kind of a workshop luncheon last weekend. And they're probably going to be wrapping that process up probably around town meeting, if not a little bit past it. And we are losing our financial director, so if anybody wants to be a financial director or accountant for us. And then the HDC is looking and putting together stuff to apply for a Mass Works grant for, I'll call it extended downtown improvements, so more walkability downtown, fixing the sidewalks that are kind of a mess downtown, and connecting downtown with the pool, basically down as far as Winthrop, so that it's more user-friendly and safe for pedestrian traffic and all the like, and with anticipation that Winthrop School will be something different in the years to come once the I'm going to get on my thing, MSBA, Mass School Building Authority, looks at, in looking at a new, I'll call it a Cutler School site or a elementary school site for all of the towns. And I think that study, we've been fast-tracked on that. And I think Eric, and when he comes on, if we ask him, we could. It's like, I think there's another meeting coming up, and then we go through kind of the first rounds of the feasibility study. And that's usually about 18 months. So we're kind of started into that process to see where the new building will go. And it could go in Hamilton or Wenham, wherever we can find the space for it. I'm crossing my fingers for Wenham, but we'll see what happens.
Okay, thank you. Sandy, anything from the Conservation Commission?
Yeah, a few things. We had our first bylaw outreach meeting a couple of weeks ago. It was well attended. I wasn't there, but I understand there were 20, 25 people.
That's good.
Our second one is Saturday at the library, 10 to 12. There will be coffee and a few light snacks if you're hungry. Come and join us. So that's progressing. Our conservation agent has notified us he is leaving in a few months, so we'll be looking for a new agent. And then just surfaced last night for the first time was the idea that maybe we should not be managing some of the properties, primarily Patton Ridge, that is currently within our purview to manage. We feel that maybe is out of our scope.
How so?
We didn't really get into it much, Sean. It was thrown in at the last minute, but I think the idea was that we're very focused on the WPA.
Yeah.
And that managing a property is just much broader than
Yeah.
kind of our scope
Right.
and mission.
That makes sense. It was always kind of an interesting relationship, I'll call it, with that area, because for a while they were encroaching on areas and stuff like that, and it wasn't quite delineated, so there was a lot of kind of back and forth between the Conscom previously and the Ridge residents. So, and it's a hill to mow and all that kind of stuff. And I think the residents wanted the Conscom to do a lot more, like completely mow it all the time because they were saying ticks. But if you've ever been to the Patton property, that's par for the course in New England, so. Interesting. I'll have to follow that.
Thank you.
Yeah, we just scratched the surface
Yep.
on that. So.
Thank you. Michelle, the Housing Authority?
Our meeting was canceled this morning due to the stomach bug, so hopefully next month we'll have something to report.
Okay, very good. Anybody else have any comments? What's happening around town for committee reports? Well, I think we're going to have Eric in a few minutes, but let's press on. I think we will plan a meeting for our usual second Thursday next month, only because we're probably going to want to look at the wording of the warrant article on a couple of things. This business of the split between Hamilton, us, and the 1/3, 2/3, I don't want that to go on forever. And what happens if they don't match exactly to the 2/3, 1/3? How can we word it so that that's okay too? I mean, if they approve 600 instead of 800, well, if they don't match in the right way. So I want to make sure we get that wording right, and also that we don't tie up funds forever. So we will, unless something changes, I think we should plan on meeting next month, the second Thursday.
That'll be the 9th.
March 9th, yeah. Yeah,
Here?
yeah.
I'm gonna double check on that we have time. We're working on the wording then, because shortly thereafter, the warrant's gonna be going to printing.
Ooh,
Yeah, it's going to go to print probably with the 15th or 16th, I think. So that's about 5 days from that meeting.
Too close.
It's pretty tight. Maybe Jay, you and I, or we could get a subcommittee and be
Okay.
a little more fluid with it.
yeah.
And then
All right.
maybe March 9th will be a meeting where we just
Tell everybody.
finalize it and tell
Yeah.
everybody what it is.
Okay.
All right,
Oh, he's here in
there he is.
person. We
Oh,
weren't
my
expecting
God.
to see in
Doesn't
person.
look like he's on Zoom.
How does he be at 3 places at one time?
Superpowers.
So I guess while Eric's getting set, Lori, if you could help Jay when we get language and
Yes.
and tell Joe to kind of press Tom for some language, and, because that's one of those kind of moving targets we've had with all the language for all those articles related to the Wenham match that we should really figure out before it goes to print.
You know, it's
Okay.
on preliminary a little while ago, because we did
Yeah, yeah,
touch base with.
yes, we have.
We have a little bit of a.
Okay, very good. All right. Eric, welcome.
Thank you. Apologize for my tardiness. As you know, I'm running 3 meetings at once
I
right
know you're
now.
running. I just want to say before you start, first of all, full disclosure, Michelle, myself, and Kim Deedle are part of the Hamilton Wenham Athletic Facilities Improvement Committee. And secondly, for your benefit, the same people who were here last month are here this month, so there's no new faces, so
Excellent.
that might help in what you're going to say.
Excellent. Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be back, and appreciate the opportunity to try and make this project real for our communities, for our kids. I think it's important to note for the general public and for people here that we really have 5 goals for this project. Bringing kids back on campus. We have a whole number of kids that have left over time for various reasons. And in interviews with these families, they talk about what we don't have compared to local area schools, private schools, et cetera. Enhancing youth community athletic experience. I don't know how many times we've had to reach out and say to the youth sports team, sorry, you can't use the field because it's filled with water, or it's got a divot in the middle, or it's mud. So I think that's an important piece of it. I think this is an opportunity that will bring all of our kids together. So no matter how small they are, to our oldest kids in high school, they'll be able to make connections through that field project. Relieving pressure on the town parks. The fields in the parks are used quite heavily. In fact, we have overspill into those fields. So when you start to look at the fields down by the library or Pingree, wherever our kids are able to play, we're getting them on a field because of the overuse on the fields behind the high school. Addressing our accreditation issues, we have been cited for not meeting one of the 6 foundational accreditation requirements, and that happens to be learning spaces, and those fields in that back area of the middle and high school are considered learning spaces by our accrediting agency, NEASC. And then, as I said the last time I said, building community pride, really building some attraction to families to make connections with our communities, to kind of pull back, come together again since COVID kind of tore us apart as a whole over time. I think it's a great opportunity to start to bring everybody back together and to rally around the amazing things that we can do as a community and the amazing opportunities that we're willing to put together on behalf of our kids. Everybody knows about the components of the project, so I won't go back through that. But I think it's important to know a little bit about athletics in our school district. As you know, we're a member of the MIAA and the Cal League. We offer 29 sports throughout the school year, 29 opportunities for kids. We also have our gym classes, our phys ed and health classes are on those fields as well, both for the middle and the high school. Over 70% of Hamilton Wenham Regional High School students participate in at least one sport. 70%. 92% of our teams earn MIAA academic distinction, and 100% of them earn sportsmanship awards. So our kids are, scholars and athletes, and we like to brag about that, and I think it's important for us to be able to brag about everything our kids are connected to as a community. And in the last year, 83% of our teams qualified for state tournament. If you remember when I was here last, the state tournaments are often played in other places, even though we have, quote, home field advantage. We don't often get to play in the field because by the time you get to the end of the season, our fields are in pretty rough shape. You can't grow grass in November. It's tough to kind of make repairs, if you will. And then, the injuries that come to that are really devastating for high school kids to end a career or end, the future they may want to play in college. So we've seen a lot of injuries because of the kinds of undulations, if you will, in the field or holes and things. So I think those are the important points to make, and certainly I can answer any questions that the committee may have. I really think the opportunity to be able to do this on behalf of both communities for our kids is an important way to kind of pull people back into the community and really get that community pride and spirit back.
I just have a couple of questions. Sure. Based on what I asked you last month. The cost estimate that you gave us with your application package, which was the 75% design point from Gale Associates, was $10.4 million, and your estimate on the project is 15. And I can see what was on there, but I had some questions about, okay, what are the elements that get you from 10.4 to 15? One is the amenities building with bathrooms.
Yep.
a ticket booth,
Mhm.
a concession stand, or
Correct.
maybe the concession is buried in there somewhere. And so is the sewerage hookup for for the bathrooms included in that price?
We're currently working on that part of the piece of the project, so just, I'll back up a little bit. I didn't have the amenities building figure last time I was here. We
Right.
have worked with Gail to get that rough estimate. They run about $850 dollars per square foot. It's crazy right now, but the amenities building can be connected to, your concession stand as well. Several communities have done that. There's a concession stand on one side and, the amenities are on the other, or, changing room for referees, however you design it. You do have to design in ADA requirements for toilets, so that is a piece of the puzzle. Current work group, the building committee for this group met last night, as a matter of fact. We met and we went through all of our numbers. We're looking at about 14,600,000-ish, with contingencies built in there for septic, for sprinklers, for the backfields, because those would still be grass. So there's still those pieces of the puzzle. We feel like we're in that realm. And within that group, we have a number of individuals who are in the building trades, like the commercial construction trades, so they're able to tell us. We have a gentleman who actually works installing fields for a living, so he's like, here's what it costs, here's where we're at right now. We know what will be delayed and what's not going to be delayed, so we're right in that ballpark.
Okay.
I think it's important to note, too, that at some point, we may have to make a hard decision. We may have to scale it back. And I'm okay with that as well. And I think, that there's a conversation there as well for maybe the community. But I think, you get to that point, I do not intend to go and ask our communities to put down, $15 million for this project and then go back and say, I need a little bit more. I really don't intend to do that. My position personally would be to scale it back to meet the needs that, as many needs as we can, while also meeting the requirements of Title IX and ADA and things like that, so.
Okay. Is it the current plan to keep the current home bleachers for the football field?
So right now, the current plan is to keep those bleachers. The dilemma we might run into is the press box. Because of ADA requirements, you need either a lift, depending on the height of the press box, you need a lift or an elevator.
Yeah.
But that's kind of built into this as well, so we're anticipating that as a change out, so you could leave your stands in place and swap out the press box or outfit it, retrofit it, I guess is the word, for whatever they might need for ADA compliance.
But right now, the plan is to keep the current stands.
Correct.
What about the storage buildings? There's been multiple discussions about
Sure.
how many, and are there more than one now?
So there's two storage buildings now behind the press box. There's a white and a red. The
Yep.
red is ready to come down on its own.
Right.
We store anything we don't want to have destroyed in there, kind of the heavy duty stuff. But it's ready to come down. So we'll take that down as part of the project. And the plan is to drop a footer in big enough to put in a prefab building for storage. And the prefab would save us probably $500 per square foot.
Sure.
Because it's not a heated building or anything like that. It's just really a space.
So it's just one big building? that's
Correct.
gonna be there.
Correct. The white building will stay. It's usable. It's functional according to Gail. The other building just is not worth saving.
Right. The other question is, I know you haven't had a public meeting yet, and I know nobody's gone out to the abutters per se. There was concern about lights, lighting. That was an issue years ago.
Right.
And they were supposed to provide information on these new lights that, don't have any dispersion. Did they ever give you that?
So Gail has given us specs on lights, and the new LED style lights, back then they didn't have the LED style, they were giant bulbs. LED style lights they're able to be focused within a specific area of the field with no pollution, if you will, beyond the stanchion. So if you look up a light stanchion, the lights face this way, you can't really tell on the other side that there are lights. Like if you turned and looked, that it wouldn't light up the back area. So they're very focused onto the fields.
Right.
And we still have to get in front of the planning board to see if they want to revisit those. There were times agreed to years ago, like the lights had to be off at a certain time. Yeah. We'll be reaching out to the abutters by the end of next week, and then we have Friday the first volley of an ad going out to say, hey, we're looking to build this project. Come on March 11th to the high school auditorium, and we're going to do a presentation with Gail and open us up for whatever questions people may have, because there are certainly concerns with financial, chemical, however you want to look at it. There are concerns within the community, and I think we need to address them head on.
All right.
So 9 o'clock on Saturday, March 11th.
Is there an initial maintenance budget built into the 15 million to handle the first 5 or 6 years of the
So-
life?
It's actually, in your packet, it's built into, we're going to build it into the school budget.
Yeah.
And it would basically replace what budget we have now for grass growing, et cetera, fertilization. So a lot of that would be just swap outs. We actually, last week, added an extra maintenance person into our budget. We reshifted some of our custodial personnel around and added a maintenance position. So we're hoping to be able to take advantage of that too. Instead of one, we'll have 2 people, and you know, when the infill needs to be reset, somebody can go up and get on the machine and reset the infill.
Thank you.
With the, I'm thinking of the overall, the kind of not to exceed the 15 million, and there's a lot of contingency built in there. If we don't use all that contingency, do we kind of not get charged that, or does that go in the E&D for you and then into something else?
Which contingency? You're talking about the stabilization?
I'm talking about like just a general project. You got to have some, you know, contingency on your construction project, right, in case anything goes wrong, built
Yeah.
in.
There's a 20% contingency built into the 15 million.
And so if we don't use that for anything, is that part of the bond still, and then that goes into something else? I can't remember how it works.
It's a good question. I would stage the bond.
Yeah.
I wouldn't go for the whole 15 million. You know, if you get to that point where you're at 10 million and you only you have 2 out of those 3 things done,
Right.
you got to put on the brakes and you got to really take a better look at it. But I think the smart move would be to go initially a 10 million. Plus, we're hoping to have
The fundraiser.
almost $5 million in stabilization fund, patent homestead money, the match, any CPC funds we're able to land, and then whatever the fundraising group comes up with. That could be in the range of $5 million, which could take that overall cost down even further. So the reality is I'm trying to find as many ways as possible to pull that cost down, so that we're not saying, yeah, we want you to pay the $15 million. You know, it's a big price tag for these communities. I get that, I understand that, and there's more coming with community projects and school buildings and things like that. So I'm trying to be realistic about it as well.
Anybody else?
I
Michelle?
have a comment that as a parent, when you have children in the district, your whole life revolves around the schools. And all of a sudden, that time comes to an end, and you're just living in Hamilton again. So I personally see this project as a way, as Eric said, to really bring the community back together. I would love to go to a Friday night football game with my neighbor, 70-year-old neighbor down the street. My husband would love to. There's something about youth. When it's gone, as we all know around this room, most of us, it's fleeting, but it's good to have this as an anchor for all of us. And I really personally think that this is a community-based project, and I hope that we, as a community preservation committee, back this. But I also hope that Wenham sees the importance of this and realizes that it's really important for our community. So.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, I know you've had Gail work on the plans, and I'm sure Craig, but have you had students look at it and walk through it? Because they're the ones who are using it. Like, there may be something you're missing, like, we don't pick up equipment on the left-hand side. If you could save an hour with a group of kids, you could save some silly thing
Right.
that you could fix. So I'm just wondering, what role have they had? Because they're the ones who will be using this and
Right.
doing it, and there may be safety things they're thinking of that we don't know. So I just want to know if
Great
they-
question. Yeah, great question. Craig does talk with kids. I mean, he's knee deep in kids all day long once
Yeah,
athletics
I know.
starts, you know. So for him, he sees a lot. He's been a little bit aggravating, but true when he says you can't do that, and here's why. and you can't do that, and here's why, and here's what kids will do. So I think relying on him, but also, I think once we get past this 75% mark, it's a good opportunity to start, like, that's why we want to do the public opportunity to weigh in on it, because as we move from 75 to 100%, we can make those adjustments, and I think that's an important piece of the puzzle. I think, you know, you're looking at which way the throwing areas go, which you know, how they get set up, where they're located in relation to another event. So there are all those little things that I personally don't. I played football, and that was me. But you know, if you said to me, this throwing event and this throwing event need to be close by because kids go from here to here when they're in a meet, then I would not have known that. But that's where we rely on Craig and the coaches. We've had a number of coaches involved in this process as well. So.
And as I understand it, I think the AFIC steering committee is going to have a representative at the spring sports meeting at the high school with parents and players to answer any questions as well. So they'll get some input. Anybody else want to make a statement?
Yeah, at the last meeting, excuse me, we talked a little bit about public access. Any further thoughts or developments on how much access the general public would have to the field?
Yeah, I think when you look at fields in a high school, let's just use high school as an example. You know, it was 180 days in the school year. It was 365 days in the year. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for people to access the fields. We currently work with youth sports for not only our fields but our gymnasiums as well, to try to give them time. I think the synthetic field gives us the opportunity to have more opportunity, I should say, whereas a grass field, it starts getting wet and mucky, and that's it. Synthetic field, it drains through, it actually stores water underneath the field, and then it's playable and it's usable. And I think that's an important piece of the puzzle for usability. I mean, just today, I was at the high school, out back of the high school, and there were people from the neighborhood walking the track. It's great. You know, I think that's part of the community piece. You know, your schools often act as your flagships, if you will, for kids, but I think the community piece is important. It's part of finding ways to invite, you know, your seniors to use the facilities. To maybe there's a weekly group to meet. Maybe there's pickleball that gets played at the tennis court. You know, if you build a tennis court and you don't line it for pickleball, you're in trouble, right? Isn't that how it works? But those are important community lures, if you will. I don't think people feel like that now. I think it's important for all of us to be able to say this is a. I mean, we're in this together. It's all of us or none of us. So I think it's important to be able to open those doors up as much as we can. And you know, we play quite often during the regular seasons, like the fall season and stuff, and the spring seasons. It's super active out there. During the day, our gym classes are out there. They go to Project Adventure. They're on the field. They might be on the track. So it's just a matter of just kind of working around the nuts and the bolts. You know, and keeping the access open. Right now, you can go down there and the fence is open. You can walk in. I think that's an important piece of it as well.
Okay, anybody else want to say anything? Could somebody make a motion on how to handle this grant request? I can't make the motion. So if somebody would make a motion.
I make a motion that we accept Superintendent Eric Tracy's request to apply for the CPC bond.
In the amount of $800,000.
In the amount of $800,000.
Okay, is there a second?
I second.
Okay. Let me just make a couple comments, and anybody else can as well, before we take a vote. Just to go over some conditions on this grant. One, and this will be part of the warrant article that the lawyers will come up with, that we'll have to review. Wording is that the condition of the grant being approved is, by the voters, is that the vote at the two town meetings, at town meeting for the debt exclusion portion and at the polls a week later, would both have to be passed by the voters. The Wenham CPC will have to match according to the 1/3, 2/3 rule, and that will be, the amount will be adjusted depending on how much Wenham approves. And then lastly, picking up from the original MOU that was written back in 2020 for this project, is that I would like to place a restriction that an MOU be exercised between the school committee and the Hamilton Wenham Recreation Department to specify both organized sports and general public access to the fields, and that way they can work it out. And so I would suggest those are the three conditions. The only other unwritten one would be if all of those 3 conditions are met, that'll start the clock going, and we need construction to start within 2 years. So, that said, does anyone else have any comments before we go to a vote?
I guess it's a little sideways, but it's related. So we're about to approve this grant to go to the town meeting for X amount.
Yep.
What happens if tonight Eric goes to the Wenham CPC and they say, you know what, nothing? Are we nothing too? Or do we feel
That'd be
that
2/3 of nothing, would be
Right.
nothing.
we don't want to go it alone no matter what?
I don't think we can.
I mean, or do we reduce the amount?
Well, we'll reduce the amount of our grant according to the 2/3, 1/3 of whatever Wenham votes for.
Right.
Right. So
Yeah.
if they
But
vote
I'm
for
saying if they
nothing,
vote for nothing, then we're
nothing.
nothing as well.
But Sean, I think it would be a good show of faith if we do vote the whole 800,000 and then if they vote nothing, because otherwise, if we lower our number first, then they say.
No, we wouldn't.
Well, we would, it's going to be approved, well, I'm going
Right.
to assume
Yeah.
we're going to approve our grant, and then Wenham's going to meet just after us, like they usually do. And if it fails at their town meeting, it thus fails at our town meeting. We just have to figure that out in the language. Unfortunate, but nature of the beast.
I think it's a confidence builder if we vote, do it. It's like, like he's building a groundswell of support, and it shows the support from this side. I don't know if we're putting any pressure on Wenham to make a decision, but it's.
Well, I mean, typically, when there's a hot
Yeah.
button issue in Hamilton that relates with Wenham, there's a lot of calling and text messaging from our town meeting to theirs about what happened, and then the reporting back out on Facebook or whatever platform afterwards about what happened.
But they're a fairly independent group. I mean, they are not going to be, we're going to do what we think is right.
Right.
And, whatever happens there, happens there. I don't think we're going to have much of an impact.
When the Wenham CPC met a couple of weeks ago in the session where they just went through and discussed in generalities without the applicants present about the grant requests, she reiterated the 2/3, 1/3 rule between two communities for the school project. So they're well aware of that requirement. I think that if we didn't put that requirement on the 2/3, 1/3, it would be there on the floor of town hall meeting anyways.
Eric?
Yes?
Sorry, full disclosure, both applications say $800,000
I know.
because from my perspective, I was like,
Right.
I thought it was a one number and then
Yeah.
the two decide. So I just want people to know that.
We know that.
That question was asked in Wenham an hour ago.
Yeah, we know.
What's the all right, I just wanted to make sure everybody knew that because initially when I put the applications in, I wasn't sure how it worked, so.
Yeah.
Well, the way it works now is if we take a vote and vote the 800 grand, they would have to
Come up with four.
approve 400.
Yep.
And then they'd meet their criteria.
Yep.
And my plan is, as soon as we have a vote today, I'm going to send CPC an email tomorrow morning explaining what we did and what's going on, because they meet next Thursday and actually vote.
Right.
So. Anybody else want to say any comments?
No, I'm ready.
All ready to go for a vote? Okay. I'll start with me. I vote yes. Robert?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Kim?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Sean?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
It's unanimous.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Certainly we'll continue to find ways to raise funds and bring this project to reality. So I really appreciate it.
Good luck.
I'm going to go to school committee meeting now.
I was gonna say,
Yes.
Have fun.
don't get a ticket on the way down 1A.
Oh, boy.
Well,
Thanks. Thank you very much.
thank you.
So that happened.
Well, we'll have to see. Goes on.
It's just, there's anything left on your agenda? Is there anything left on your agenda?
There's not much left on my agenda. Other business as necessary. Does anyone have any other business we need to transact?
And is it necessary if you do?
That felt pretty good, the vote. Felt good to cast a vote for that.
Yeah. Well, we'll wait till Sean gets back and see if he has anything.
Necessary.
Sean met with their head of the FinCom in Wenham, and they were supportive of putting a warrant article to match the Recreation Stabilization Fund. Do you have anything else we want to discuss?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
What is a green burial?
Oh,
I've heard of
great question.
composting
The mushroom thing?
bodies now, but the green
That's one of
burial-
them.
Is it?
I-
It is literally to put a mushroom
My friend's
suit.
father did it.
What?
It's a suit in
Yeah.
which the fungi, the mushroom, will feed off of the dead body and consume it, and then mushrooms come up, and that's the end of you and the mushroom.
So there's different levels
But
of
there
it.
are different styles
Yeah.
of that particular.
And
So
so-
it's not the body composting, because that's a new,
No, I mean, there's a couple different
Yeah.
types. The type that we're not talking about is the kind of, they put the body out in the woods and it just
Rots away.
rots away.
Yeah.
The
Fox
type that we're
food.
talking about, so
Stand by me.
it's,
Right.
this one is more, you're buried in a pine unfinished box in a shroud, non-embalmed, and you're there
Go
just to
away.
decompose a lot quicker
are they
without all the
trying to
chemicals.
make it a requirement, or they just
No,
want
no,
a
no,
certain
no.
part
We're
of the
just,
cemetery?
no, we're just giving an option.
It's an option.
Can't you do it anyways?
No.
Oh.
No. There's a lot of different rules with the things, and part of it is looking at the amount of concrete and chemicals and stuff like that in a regular traditional burial is pretty astounding when you start adding up the numbers. And part of the green burial, you have to, and we're kind of close to the Miles River and some wetlands in our current cemetery, so we're not sure about where the water table is and how that would work. And there's restrictions on kind of how the person passed. You know, if it was the bubonic plague or something like that, we're not going to do a green burial with you. We're probably going to recommend
The other
cremate it,
reality
but-
is that the crematoria and funeral home businesses are not big fans of this concept.
Yeah.
And have actually built laws in a lot of states that prevent you from even thinking about it.
Yeah.
You kind of just threw it out there, like nonchalantly.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think it's been trending as more people are more environmentally conscious about things. And Wenham does it currently, but they haven't had one yet. They have,
By the golf course?
I think so.
No,
No, which, Iron Rail, sorry, Iron Rail, right.
Yeah.
only at Iron Rail.
Only at Iron Rail. And so there's other communities that do it, but there are different levels of regulation and stuff that they've put in, so we're kind of looking for a best practice, and they give the option if we can do it.
They also come here looking for money.
Anyone else have anything we need to discuss? If not, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Let me do a roll
Second.
call. Robert,
I seconded.
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Kim,
Yes.
Jay
Sandy,
was moving
Yes.
fast.
Sean,
Yes.
Michelle.
Yes.
We're adjourned at 7:45.
All right. Just in time to not watch.